Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Meet Me in Napa podcast. Thank you for all the reach outs and the DMs and the pats on the backs and the hellos and all the good stuff. We're just thankful that you guys are supporting it. I told you I was going to bring you some exciting content here to Napa Valley, and you can already see who's on the camera here. It's sometimes some people are like kind of larger life figures out here in Napa, and I have a special guest here, Gordon Huther. How you doing?
Right on, Jeremy. Thanks for having me, brother.
No problem, man. No problem, man. And I just want to say, and I don't think I got to say it last time I was talking to someone, but I always thank you guys as being my most important guests, because you guys said yes at a time when it might not have been popular to say yes, when there was nothing in it for you. You were just doing it out of relationship and
out of love, brother.
Out of love.
Yeah.
So I'm just thankful that you came here. I got a glass of wine here.
Cheers, Jeremy.
Cheers. Yes, cheers, man. Cheers. Yeah, cheers to a good conversation and some good storytelling, man. So just for the people who don't know you, because there will be people watching it who are not from Napa, everybody who's come here, even if they don't know you and know who you are, they've seen your work. That you're part of the reason that you make Napa beautiful.
Well, thank you, Jeremy.
With some of the things that you're doing. But I'm not going to kiss your butt the whole interview, all right?
No, all right. I did take a shower.
No, but seriously though, you have art. What do you think is your most I just want to start with this, and then we'll kind of get into the journey of how you got into art.
Sure.
But what do you think is your most important piece that you've done in the Valley so far?
There's different ways of measuring importance,
or should I say popular?
I don't. We did the 9/11 memorial in downtown Napa, right on Main Street there, and that was a really significant project because it's just so deep in what the story is, right? And that's the story of 9/11. When the Twin Towers came down, and we were able to secure about 40 tons of steel from the World Trade Center.
Wow.
Biaggi Brothers went out there and volunteered, brought their flatbed trailers out there and picked up the steel, and we made a beautiful 9/11 memorial garden out of it, and it has all the victims' names. It has a narrative of the event. And it's easy with time to forget things that were so monumental in the continuum of time. And this is just a great memorialization of that event, and it's right in the heart of downtown.
Yeah.
Another project that comes to mind is out at Stanley Ranch. I think it's maybe 3 or 4 years ago, installed about, 9-ton sculpture out at a 5-star resort. And, it's one of my favorites, but I've probably done 25, 30 installations in the Napa area. And ironically enough, even though that sounds like a lot, most of my business as an artist is not local. It's across the United States and different parts of the world.
Yeah. The 9/11 was one of those days that stopped the world, right?
Yeah. Everybody knows where they were.
Everybody knows where they were. Yeah. I was actually getting dressed for work, and I saw the second plane crash in, and it was just, it's one of those things you'll never forget.
And there's a new hotel development and condos going where the Kohl's with the K, Kohl's department stores. That's all coming down. Gorgeous hotel, gorgeous condominiums, all that. And now the 9/11 memorial has kind of become a central component of that project, just where it's placed geographically. So we actually just had a meeting this morning with the architects, landscape architects. We're going to do a nice facelift on that whole park. So that's exciting coming up.
Oh, that's exciting. Yeah, I can't wait to see that. So let's get into a little bit about who you are, where you from, your journey to the Valley. Like, where does your story begin? Were your parents were from here? Where are they from?
Yeah, so at the risk of boring your fans, what I do for a living is I specialize in large-scale, site-specific, permanent art installations for airports and parks and hospitals and police stations and universities, parking garages, anywhere where there's the interest and the means for art in public places. We try to be there. And came to Napa when I was 2 years old, 3 years old. My parents were both German immigrants after the Second World War, and they met on the boat. One of those kind of stories. And so they met on the boat, and I was born in New York, so you can kind of put two and two together right there. And then, well, I don't know, the months don't quite work out, but, there was a little bit of, a little getting warm up period there.
Yeah.
In any event, as many people have done over the years, they went west. They went to California where opportunity was. And they came to Napa really looking for work. So in those days, this would
why Napa? Oh, do you know why Napa? Because usually people went to the shipyards in San Francisco and the ports.
Yeah, there's Mare Island and that kind of thing.
How did it get to Napa?
Somebody told my mom or told my dad that there was work to be had in Napa, and I don't know if it was Rough Riders that used to make pants here in town, or I'm not really sure what work they were looking for. But when they got here, there was no work. And they rented out a converted chicken coop out on Big Ranch Road that we lived in, my mom, my dad, and my sister. And then my dad got a job at the Huether's department store. It's long since gone. And, he was actually a barber. He was trained as a barber in Germany.
Okay.
And he went to the owner or the manager of this department store and said, hey, let me decorate a couple windows for free, and if you like them, maybe you'll hire me. And he worked there for over 20 years. Never done it before. Wow. And a lot of the talents that I've worked on over the years really came from being with my dad and observing. He would teach me he'd have me empty out a department store window, give me 7-8 prune crates, arrange them in the window, and then we would critique it. I learned.
Is he one of those OCD like that's off an inch?
Yeah, right. Or if you turn it just that way, there'd be more tension. I learned how to undress mannequins. That came in very handy later in my years. So those kind of the beginnings of being in Napa. And then when I was about 10 years old, this would be like 69, 70, my mother decided she didn't want to be married anymore, and she moved myself and my 3 siblings to San Francisco.
Okay.
Kind of inner city kind of situation. And in those days, Napa was very white. And I'd never even seen a black person except on the Mod Squad on the TV. You're too young to remember the Mod Squad.
But I know the show, but I didn't watch it.
So there was this guy. There was this guy named Lynx. He had a big old fro, and some dude hit him with a pipe, and I couldn't understand how that pipe penetrated his afro. So I'm just saying. So that's how. That's how. Yeah, right. It was like a helmet or something. And so I'm just sharing that to give you an idea of how disconnected I was to the rest of the world. Napa at that time had 20,000 people living here and 25 wineries.
Yeah.
So it was just a whole different place. And then next thing you know, I pop up in the 6th grade and I'm the only white kid in there.
What neighborhood were you, like in Fillmore or Hunters Point?
No, first we were on 19th Avenue. 19th and Irving is where I went to school. Then I was Ingleside Terrace, and my mom moved us around a lot. But it turned out to be some pretty rough days. There was a high school out in the avenues called Abraham Lincoln, and first day of school was a total race riot. Second day, somebody shot and killed in school, and
now,
so
this is in the early 70s. Yeah. So there's a lot of political tension in that.
Yeah, and had I graduated from high school, it would have been in 77, just to kind of frame it a little bit. Right. And so it was really rough, but it was.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
That being your first experience coming to a culture of just seeing other races.
Yeah, Filipino, Korean, Japanese.
Did it harden your heart towards as a younger man, were you hardened towards just other races in general, or was it like?
It was the totally opposite.
Okay.
So, in those days, I don't know if it's like that in high schools today, but the brothers and the sisters were in that part, the Filipinos were over there, and the jocks were over there, the potheads were over here. So everybody kind of had their little territory. Space. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so, but my little clique. There was one of everybody. we get in my VW bug and go down to Ocean Beach and close up all the windows and light it up. And it was just, we just soaked in the love of the diversity and all that. It was just so amazing. It was just really, really amazing. And it was shocking and traumatic at the time, but it turns out it was a total blessing.
Yeah.
I don't know what kind of person I would have been had I stayed in Napa. Do you know what I mean? And
Exactly.
come up through that.
Yeah,
So I'm very grateful to my mother who, well, I wish I could bring her back from the dead so I hit her with a stick. But I mean, I don't think she realized that she was doing something really positive for me and for my siblings, as rough as it was.
Yeah.
And then that all culminated with 3 months in juvenile hall, maximum security. I was the only white kid in there again. Okay. So that was super rough. And then I got out and I joined the Navy, and I was in the Navy for like 24 hours. And they kicked me out. So it was quite it
sounds like some of my uncle's stories.
It was kind of a bumpy beginnings for me, you know. And then my dad had remarried a Mexican woman named Margarita. She had a house up in Santa Elena, so I called them up, and I said, "Dad, oh man, I just gotta get out of the city, man. There's like this one kid I knew in school. He wound up full of bullets in the trunk of a car. It was just all crazy like that.
A lot of chaos.
You know, and I'm kind of a sensitive guy. I was just going crazy with that. I'm no tough guy.
I think there's a lot to be said about that, because oftentimes most people who are, maybe they're in jail for life or they're really hardened, tough guys, there's very few of them were like that because of their conditions. They had to kind of it was kind of like eat or be eaten. Mm. So some people just choose, I'm going to be someone, I'm going to be someone who's going to eat instead of be
all that machismo and stuff, and either so be
but it's not really who they want to be.
Yeah, well, and a lot of them are stuck in that world. It takes a lot to bust out, and a lot of them kids in there, it was like a revolving door. Hey, JoJo, where you been? I haven't seen you in like 3 weeks, They're just in and out, in and out. And I saw that coming my way, and so I called my dad and I said, "Oh man, can I come and live with you guys? I just got to get out of the city." And
How old were you at this time?
17.
Okay.
And my dad and his wife, my stepmother, they were so unenthusiastic, but they reluctantly said yes. Mm-hmm. And she already had 6 of her own kids, so I really wasn't all that welcome. I remember pacing the floor at night, and I'm like, Dad, like, what do people do here at night, And he's like, well, they go to bed. And I'm like, what? Huh? What? Because in the city, you're like calling all your friends, where's the party at? Where's the party at? And so I panicked, and then he panicked because I was panicking. And so in those days, stained glass, macrame, terrariums, sand candles, all that stuff was very popular, all this craft kind of stuff. And my dad had just taken a stained glass class, and so he gave me a box of colored glass and a little pattern of a parrot and a glass cutter, and with 10 thumbs on the kitchen table, I made the world's ugliest stained glass window, And then I made a second one bigger, and I remember leaning it on my dad's living room window, and I was looking at that, and I thought, I just fell in love with color and light and this idea of crafting something that's coming out of your head, through your heart, out your fingertips. And then I decided that someday I was going to do large-scale work all over the world that was going to have a lasting positive impact on humanity. Wow. And that was bigger than me, right? No kid, after just a little bit of background I gave you, you don't just, I don't know where that comes from, and I'm not a religious man, believe me, but when I think about it, I was just floored that came over me like that. And, I've been on that path ever since, and that's, almost 50 years ago. Okay. And I've just been at it. So hardcore the whole time, never quit,
So no art school or anything, just straight, just.
Well, I'm kind of grateful that I didn't go to art school, because they have certain biases, these professors and the the leadership of these schools and certain values they want to teach you that are not just about art. And I would have had to unlearn all that stuff. It could have ruined me.
Or you just got kicked out like you did in the military.
Yeah, right. I just get kicked out
you
again.
Like the kind of person that gave him the middle finger, like, you know.
I got kicked out of the Boy Scouts too, you know. So I'm just not really, as Groucho Marx once said, I would never belong to an organization that would have me as a member. So, you know, yeah. So no formal training except that stuff I was sharing with my dad with those windows, and you know, I've always been an avid reader, so I've learned a lot through books, and I encourage everybody just to. I know reading is kind of an old-fashioned thing anymore, but that's where the presence of the past is.
So you fell in love with that ugly stained glass window you said you made.
World's ugliest.
The world's ugliest, right? And then you just a fire lit in you that you were just this is what you wanted to do. So from at that point, what was your? I want to matter of fact kind of retract a little bit, because you said when you were staying with your father, you had 7. She had kids. They were all six.
She had 6 of her own.
Okay, is that boys and girls or just all sons? Okay,
boys and girls.
Was there what was that like? Was there any formidable relationships there with them, or was?
Oh, it's hardcore rivalry.
Okay.
You know, what's this white boy doing here, man? That's my stepdad, and you know, and he's the greatest thing since canned milk, and I was basically a threat.
Okay.
So
they loved your stepdad. They loved your dad, but they didn't love you.
No, not at all. I couldn't wait to see the back of him.
Are any of you guys friends today?
I haven't seen him in probably decades. I mean, I'm not. I don't have any.
You're not friends.
I don't have any animosity, but you know, I'm in the paper a lot and stuff. They know where I am. They'd come see me if they wanted to. They'd be welcome.
But don't take them up on it.
No, you come see me. It's okay.
Yeah, come see him. We'll do the family reunion episode.
Yeah, there you go. That would be rich. That would be rich.
So yeah, I just wanted to ask because didn't know what the
Yeah. So
where's your so at this point, did your mother you left? Did you rekindle relationship with your mother? Was it kind of torn at that point?
It was kind of estranged a little bit, or I don't know. I just never really talked to her that much, and didn't see her very often. And in her last days, you know, she saw, you know, she was circling the drain, so to speak, and so she wanted to do a couple therapy sessions, which I agreed to do, but you know, it's too much work. It's just too much work, you know. And my dad, it's not like my dad was an angel either. They both, to give him a little bit of a pass, you know. If you ever met anybody that grew up in the middle of a war, if you ever see bodies blowing up and buildings blowing up and people starving, and you know, that's very traumatizing. And so they were pretty emotionally beat up when they got here. As you know, immigrants come here for a better life, and they're just trying to find their way, and it's usually the subsequent generation, mine, that benefit the most from that. They don't usually. You know, it's what they give to their kids. So for that I'm grateful. Bless you.
Sorry.
You know, so once I decided that that's who I was and that's what I was going to be. Also, well, Jeremy, if you don't mind, let me back up a little bit. I already knew when I was like 4 or 5 years old. I'll never forget, I'm sitting on the toilet and I'm having one of my deep thought meetings with myself, 5 years old, you know, and I used to do that too. Keep asking you at school, what are you going to be when you grow up? I want to be a veterinarian, but I don't know how to spell it. So no, that's, no, I don't want to be a fireman. And so I still have my mom had this little journal that I'd keep, you know, my school picture, then an envelope for all your papers, and then there's a thing where you check some boxes, and what do you want to be when you grow up? I wrote artist, you know, and I always knew that I had the heart and soul of an artist, but I also thought that I didn't have any talent. So I felt like God, if you believe in that stuff, was playing a cruel trick on me. How could you give somebody the heart and soul of an artist but no talent? So that's kind of mean, you know.
You gotta go create talent.
So I figure, well, what I lack in talent, I'll make up for working harder than everybody else, and I did. I mean, as far as I know, weekends, nights. I was just a force to be reckoned with. I jumped on anything that moved, any opportunity. I'd create opportunities, took enormous risks, had, no cash, officially started my business in my garage over on E Street. I was married to Ava at the time. And with $500, I started my studio. And a year later, I moved into the tannery over on South Coombs. I'm not that good at math, but like 40 years ago.
Okay.
40 years ago.
I was 4 years old.
All right. Well, at least you were amongst the breathing,
5 years old, yeah.
You're amongst the breathing.
That's crazy.
And then I got a studio space out in the old tannery on South Coombs. And I was in that building for 20 years, and then I finally bought the property where I am now about 15 years ago, over on Monticello Road.
Yeah, which is a beautiful place.
Yeah, but here's the thing. There's like, I live by a certain philosophy, and it kind of goes like, thoughts are things. So the things that you think about, that's what you will manifest. Mm-hmm. So if you keep thinking about what a loser you are, well, guess what? Or you think about what a badass podcaster I'm going to be. You just keep thinking like that. It's inevitable.
I am that.
Thoughts are things, and so you just like you are what you think. Yeah. What you think about, and you have to have vision. You have to have purpose. You have to be willing to take risks. Mm-hmm. So you have to step out there embrace the fear. You're not really living unless you're feeling some fear sometimes. And so I feel very, very blessed and fortunate to do what I do for a living, for sure.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I like what you said about, being parents in the middle of war, to see all that stuff. And then, you're not going to grow up and just be this
Mr. Happy Place, not at all.
Read you children's books after I just watched, one of the greatest atrocities just happened.
Yeah, my grandfather was on the Russian front, and he just saw the death and destruction and eating your frozen horses. And my father, as a teenager, a Hitler Youth, after the air raids, his job was go get that wheelbarrow and clear those dead bodies off the bridge, and just stuff that no one ever should have to experience or see. And sadly enough, humanity has not learned anything from the past, because it's still happening all around us. I
wanted to ask you, just a thought came in my head when you were saying about the immigrants that come here. It's always the kids that benefit, right? Mm-hmm. And did your parents ever say that there was a welcoming? Because there's always this narrative, I feel like, in American history with the immigrants. There's always this story about immigrants, right? And you talk about the people that came from Italy or Germany, all those places, when they used to come to New York, and they were like, hey, it wasn't such a happy home. People were not welcoming us when we came off those boats, right? And so did your parents experience that? Did they ever talk about any of that?
Sure.
I kind of feel like today, history's repeating itself with that same storyline.
Yeah, well, yes, it is for sure. And there was a lot of German haters out there, which is understandable. They hated the Japanese too. It's understandable. We were at war with them. Mm-hmm. I got teased in school a little bit about being German. It wasn't that bad for me. It was probably worse for my parents and my grandparents. Although kids can be pretty mean, calling you Nazi and stuff. And, so as an individual, I had to kind of dig down in there and understand what all that meant. And I didn't know what a Jew was, just like I didn't know what about that helmet on Lynx, so there's a learning curve there as a kid. Yeah. And, I've always been very sensitive and very aware of the world around me and curious and wanting to understand and the best that one can, because some of these things you're trying to understand something that's you can't understand, that it's like peeling an onion. You're never going to get to the bottom of why people behave why they behave and all that kind of stuff. And I don't know how much that's informed the work that I do as an artist. I I don't know, so much of the art that I do just comes from a very intuitive place, and the art that I do is really about telling other people's stories, Jeremy. So next time you're at the studio and I'm showing you around, and your viewers will see some of that when this is all done. They're all. I've had people walk into my studio and think it maybe is an artist co-op, because there's so much diversity in the kind of work that's there. But I'm the only artist there. But the reason everything's so different from one another is every story is different. Every single story is different. So we're doing a project in San Antonio right now on San Pedro Creek. It's part of the Riverwalk there. And there was this empty parking lot, and they went out with some backhoes one day and started digging it up. They were going to do some redevelopment there. It turns out they found the cornerstone of the first African American church was at that site.
Wow.
And I got wind of that. I competed for it. I won it. It's getting installed the next couple months. It's all done. It's sitting at the studio waiting to go. And I'm thinking, okay, what's the story that wants to be told here? It's the AME Church. Like I said, the first African American church in San Antonio. That congregation, the the next generations they're still there, not on that site. They're at a different building, which I went to visit with them and do a little outreach and whatnot. So what story do you want to tell? What wants to be told? And how do you honor those 300 congregants from those days and the African American community of today in San Antonio? So I found an old photograph of the facade of the church. So that's kind of the shape of this enormous structure. It's bigger than this room. Maybe two of these rooms. That's how big it is. And then I was thinking of familiar with the Freedom Quilts? The Underground Railroad. When trying to escape up to the north, they created these quilt patterns, and they were kind of like code, like hot meal here, danger, whatever, and they'd hang them out a window or whatever. And I think I found 9 of them, and we made those into what's called laser cut aluminum and powder coated in white. And it's all this filigree throughout it, and I recreated kind of the shape of the church, but filled it in with these freedom quilts. And it's so beautiful. And I was just at a event that they had. We hired a what's her name? Vocab. She goes by Vocab. She's a African American poet laureate for San Antonio. So she did a poem that's also in the structure. And so I'm just using that as an example of the idea of storytelling through art.
Stories, through art. So I said earlier, you have done some really, really big art pieces or art installations.
Yeah.
Yes. For some major Black events that have happened in America. And one of them was the children for the Atlanta murders back in the 80s, correct?
Yep.
Yeah. So what?
Late 70s, early 80s.
Late 70s, early 80s. I mean, you got tapped to do that. So what was that journey like? What was that process like from you hearing about it, bidding for it, getting it, and then actually doing it and being in the community and all that stuff? How was that for you?
Yeah. Well, I'll answer your question in a moment, but I also just finished with a collaboration for the Tulsa Massacre with the African American artist. So that's at least 3 major projects that I've done that are African American centric. I think that would be the right way of saying that. Yeah. And so the one in Atlanta, it was a competition. But generally what they do, they put out what's called an RFP or an RFQ, request for proposal, request for qualifications. And for a project like that, they might have 50 to 150 artists apply. And out of that, they choose 3. So I made the final 3, which you already feel like you're winning something, but all you're doing is winning an opportunity to spend a lot of money on a proposal. The other 2 artists, I believe, were African American, and the whole room was. When I got up to do my presentation, and I thought, well, I don't know. If I was you all, I probably wouldn't pick me. Well, do you know what I mean? Because it's kind of African American centric.
I probably wouldn't have either.
You know,
think, you just
it's an uphill battle somehow, you know. But I thought, well, doggone it, can we just be colorblind for a minute? I'm thinking to myself, and you know, if my proposal is the one that resonates, then don't hold my color against me. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? If this is the best one. So just don't look at who the color of the skin of the artist. Yeah. Look at the merit of the concept, and is that artist touching the families? Is that artist touching the community? Mm-hmm. Is that artist honoring the memory of those children in a really elegant, timeless way? And you know, the list goes on of the things that you should be thinking about. And well, shit, I won. I just couldn't believe it.
What year was that?
That got installed probably 3 years ago.
Okay.
And, you know, it's kind of hard to describe just with words, but it's part of what drives an installation, a public art installation, is the site. So something that's out in the middle of the desert is different that's in front of City Hall in Atlanta, right? Mm-hmm. And it's on a slope, and so I had it cut into the earth, and it's kind of an oval shape. Feel like you're being embraced, being hugged. It has an eternal flame component to it. It has each individual's name in stainless steel letters on a little shelf, and people put flowers on it and teddy bears and all that. So yeah, it was a powerful installation.
Was there any like when you won it? Was there any kind of blowback in the community because you won?
Because a white boy did it from California? What kind of shit is that?
I'm just saying. I
don't know. Oh, okay. No, I didn't hear anything.
Okay.
No, to the community's credit, you know, was, and I went to the dedication and.
Did you meet family victims?
Yeah, they were there. Man,
how was that?
Hugging on you and crying, and you know, the mayor and the previous mayor were there. They were very eloquent in their speeches and all that. And I gave a little speech, and it was just very moving. It's very, I guess, it's very validating. And instead of getting all puffed up about it, I get very humbled by it and just feel very grateful that I am in a position to create things like that for humanity, because I'm all about trying to make the world a more beautiful place. Mm-hmm. That we live in kind of there's a lot of ugliness around us, even though we're in our little Napa Valley bubble. Mm-hmm. But all you gotta do is look at a newspaper and you see what's going on out there.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So let's go back. So you said you went to when you decided that's what you're gonna do. What was how long were you creating to the first piece that you were proud of, that you were like, I got it? Because you were saying I have no talent, right? It's like, how do you give me a heart of the artist, but I was no talent? When did you feel like you had the talent? At what was the first piece that you looked at was like, okay, I got some talent.
Oh, I see. No, I was pretty self-conscious about my lack of talent for a really long time, but I think my first public art project that I was awarded was in Fairbanks, Alaska, and it was beautifully crafted in stained glass. In those days, that's all I did it's referred to as leaded glass or stained glass. It was like 16, 18 feet long, 8 feet tall. It was kind of a big deal. And I don't know, it felt like all that work previous to that kind of came together, and I'm like, oh yeah. And I never even knew that there was something called public art. That was something that I kind of stumbled across, and that's been a pretty big source of revenue for the studio and a source of opportunities as an artist. So I'd say that was in '86. Okay. So if I started like in, I don't know, in the late '70s, so it took a little while to be proud of what I was doing.
Yeah. Which naturally anything that you are doing does, you have to.
Yeah, well, let's look at your first podcast,
Exactly. Well, you want to know what's interesting enough? Is that my first podcast was not on here. I was doing one during COVID, and all I had was my phone.
See,
and
well,
I was and I would hit record and I was interviewing people. It was audio only, and that's kind of why I backed away because I was like, from that experience, I knew if I ever got back into it again, this is what I'm doing now is from how I wanted to present it.
Yeah.
Because there was just nothing to going around people. You wouldn't even have said yes. If I said, yeah, we're doing it on my phone.
Yeah, no thanks. Right.
Well,
but that's
I like you, Jeremy. But
that's the American. And I'd say West Coast in particular, that's the American way, man. That's what I know that our country has a lot of problems, especially with that dude in the White House right now, but we still have problems with racism and poverty and health, all that kind of stuff, but I wouldn't want to be anywhere else in the world. I mean, I tried living in Germany for a couple of years, and and that's the biggest economy in Europe, and even there's no way that I could do what I'm doing here. Mm-hmm. So here, if you want to be a barber, you put a barbershop sign out front of a store, and if you do a shitty job, you're not gonna have any customers, not for very long. Yeah. But if you're doing it really good, you got a right vibe and stuff, you could prosper. Yeah. And so somebody like me that's an undereducated artist with hard work and a little bit of talent, maybe, you can do it here. Yeah. It's just amazing.
The last great things about America.
Yeah, right. And California is particularly like that, and that really comes from historically, like the gold rush and everything. People coming out here, with 2 nickels to rub together, and working hard, and yes, we can, and all that. That's kind of the mentality that's still prevalent in California.
Yeah. So, tell me, what's the piece over there? The Mondavi? Did you do the Mondavi one?
Oh, we're at Copia, Bob and Margaret Mondavi sitting up on the tower.
Yeah, but isn't there one? You did that one, but when you're coming over the hill, over the bridge hill, that statue that's there, then.
Oh no, that's the wine crusher. The wine crusher. No.
Okay. I like that piece though, but I do like the Stanley Ranch. But you did the one at Copia.
Yep. Okay. So that's Bob and Margaret that are sitting up on the tower, toasting the life of the wine country. Mm-hmm. And I knew both of them. I knew Margaret very well, and I knew Bob kind of casually. And Margaret and I would speak German together, and we were both interested in the arts and both artists, and so we just had a great rapport. And when she was on her last days, when it turned into the CIA, Dr. Tim Ryan asked. He's the director of all their campuses. Who wanted to do some art out there to kind of fluff the place up a little bit. We're walking across the parking lot, and he goes, "Gordon, what about that tower?" And I said, "Well, what about that tower?" He goes, "Can we do some art up there?" And Jeremy, I'm telling you, from the moment he said that until I got to my car, by the time I got to my car, I already had it in my head that that's what we should do, right? And so I went to go see Margaret. She was pretty much on her deathbed. And, her and Bob got hit up for donations all the time. So she thought I was hitting her up for money. And I said, Margaret, no, I'm not. No, Margaret, I just wanted you to know that we're putting a statue of you and Bob up on that tower. And she goes, she was so humble. I just love humility. And she was so humble about everything. And she was kind of, I don't know if that's such a good idea. I said, Margaret, we're doing it. We're just doing that. Mm-hmm. And so that... Yeah, I like that piece. Thanks for reminding me. I've forgotten that I even did that, even though I drive by it every day. Sometimes you drive by the same thing every day, you don't see it anymore, We also did like a 14-foot fork covered with forks. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It was interesting because I walked in there. I was at a wine event over there, and when I walked in, I saw the fork, and then I saw your name, and I was like, "Oh, Gordon did that." I was like, "Yeah, go figure, right?" So. But so your relationship with the Mondavis was a positive relationship.
Super. Yeah, super. Yeah. And Bob in his last years, he couldn't speak anymore, and I'd go to their house for dinner, just us. And he lived in that huge house. It must be like 15,000 square feet, but it only has one bedroom. Do you know why?
Why?
because he didn't want people to spend the night.
I was about to say he didn't want his kids to come back. That might be a good idea.
Jean-Claude Poisset lives there now with his wife. What's her name? Is her name Tina? No, the woman that has Gallo. Gina Gallo.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
They live up there now. On Wapo Hill. But, Margaret, she must have kept him alive an extra 5 years. She'd always make sure he was well dressed. She'd have a big pad of paper, and she goes, "Gordon is here for dinner." And, and you could see it would click with him and stuff. And so she was quite the force. She was amazing. She was an amazing woman. We've had some pretty amazing characters in this valley since I've been here, and I know before my time, but I think of Harry Price, and I think of Joe Peatman, and we just lost John Salmon, and these are all ballers in our community that are moving us forward, and so next generation, Jeremy. So do us right.
I hope that I make you proud. I
right on, Jeremy.
I feel like I'm heading in the right direction.
Right on.
Yeah. So with that being said, what do you see for the future of Napa Valley? Like, what would you want to see happening in Napa Valley? Just say over the next 10, 15 years.
Yeah, that's a great question, because as you might know, I've just retired from 20 years on the planning commission for the city of Napa, so I've been very much involved in the redevelopment of the 70s. So First Street, Main Street, the past 20 years has been an enormous transformation. Yeah. Not everybody's happy about it. There are people out there that are kind of anti-hotel, anti-resort, and so a few things before I talk about the future. I would kind of maybe touch on the past. Who was that? Alex Haley said, in order to understand where you're going, you have to understand where you've already been. Mm-hmm. All right? And so Napa, city of Napa and Napa Valley has always been a hospitality destination. It's always had hotels. It's nothing new. Mm-hmm. There was a time with Mare Island and Napa Pipe and Bay Salt and all that kind of stuff. We were kind of a blue-collar redneck kind of town. And that industry is gone. So I just want to remind everybody that our economy is very, very reliant, not on industry. That's gone. It's never coming back. It's reliant on hospitality, the wine industry, and what we should do is embrace it and do is as high a quality as possible in the architecture, in the service. Make sure that the monies that are generated, the tax revenue goes to the people in the form of amenities, of whether it's parks, dog parks for your little schnauzer, good sidewalks, good streets. So housing is a huge issue that yes. I don't think that there's, honestly, I don't mean to be negative, but I don't really see a solution for that. Mm-hmm. You can't build your way out of the problem. Yeah. Not a chance. Yeah. So if I were thinking, you said 10, 15 years, let me go 25 years. If we started today, we might have it. But there are train tracks from Napa to Vallejo. We should be looking at transit train service to Mare Island. You got tons of land to build out there, build some quality housing. Not everybody that works here can afford to live here. Mm-hmm. There's not room for everybody. Mm-hmm. When we did the, now it escapes me, what's the, with the vineyards and all of that, I'll think about it in a minute, but we limited, it's the Ag Preserve. When we created the Ag Preserve, I think that was in the 70s, maybe it was the 80s. What do you think was going to happen? When you limit what you could do with the land, the prices go up. Mm-hmm. That's kind of, I don't know, economics 101. So it's not within reach to a lot of people. And
so is the barrier on that just political only?
No. Well, I think that there needs to be the political will. There needs to be... I think you could say it starts with that, but the community really needs to come together and solve it. And, there's something called the Housing Coalition, and then there's other organizations that are very focused, hyper-focused on housing, and right on as they should be, but they're at the same time, a lot of them are anti-hotel, but the hotels is where the TOT tax comes from. Where how else are you going to pay for any of this? And again, you're never going to be able to build your way out of the problem. And it's expensive to live here. And so if a bartender makes $150,000 a year, well, how much you think that cocktail is going to cost?
Yeah.
Well, you know what I mean? So trying to figure it out. And I'm a big believer in the free market system. Certainly has worked for me as an artist and a small business owner. But there has to be some I don't know. There's got to be some intervention by government.
Feathers, man. You about to get out. You about to be on your way out of here, man. I'm not saying you about to die. I'm just saying you just said you got off the board and everything. So you're like, no. But I'm not trying to do that. But
no, that's all right.
But there is conversation of kind of like the old, the new generation, and the old wanted to stay.
And
the same.
I find myself being in the older,
and the new want to kind of bring this, new vibe and invention. I mean, even like what I'm doing. You have podcasts. I'm a black dude doing a podcast in Napa. It's the first of its kind. You have other people doing podcasts in Napa. There's media. There's social media.
Yeah,
I think there's AI, right? There's this guy I know who's trying to bring AI into farming for the land and different things to help with the farming. So what it seems like, and I think this is bigger than Napa. I think what it seems like in the world today, or America at least, there's this huge tension of people they're comfortable in the way things have been. And so they want the change to happen after they're like, okay, you do it when I'm gone. But as long as I'm here and I can stop it from happening,
right, I'm
going to use my power to stop it from happening. And once I'm gone, who cares?
I'm not here, right? That's not me. I'm really, I had this experience when my mother moved us to San Francisco. I shared with you earlier, that was 69, 70. And I came back in 77, 78. In that short window that I was gone, the city, in all its wisdom, did this thing called redevelopment, and they tore down 45 historic buildings downtown. Mm-hmm. They built Dwight Murray Plaza, they built the Kohl's, the Huethers, all that crap, absolute crap. And it was the beginning of the end for downtown. It was already sputtering, and that came because of the suburbanization of America, right? So that we were no different here. So big subdivisions, shopping malls, and downtown started suffering. So in a panic, communities, including Napa, did this thing called redevelopment. Mm-hmm. And I came back to Napa and I couldn't believe my eyes. Mm-hmm. It was horrible. Mm-hmm. Historic, beautiful stone buildings we tore down to put parking garages up and stuff like that. So I was very emotionally struck by that. But then when I got a little bit older and someone suggested, I started complaining about some hotel out on Silverado Trail and on the corner of Silverado Trail and First, and I said it looked like an Italian birthday cake, and that you better not build that. And somebody said, you should join the planning commission. I didn't even know what a planning commission was. Mm-hmm. And so I got on the planning commission, and we had no design guidelines, nothing. And I thought, well, so I've always been an advocate for high-quality design, high-quality urban planning. And, I've had a hand in how it's developed, but we're not talking about what it is today as much as we're talking about what it should be tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And it's very hard to look very far into the future with the advent of technology now, and you mentioned AI and all of that, but I can tell you that when I was a kid, there were 25 wineries in the valley. Mm-hmm. There's 500 plus now.
Right.
So how are you you can't control that.
Right.
I don't think that you can anyways. Well, they're trying to now, but the cat's kind of out of the bag. Alternatively, had we not had the ag preserve, we would have the developers would have built out this valley, mm-hmm. and it would have been like Silicon Valley. Mm-hmm. It could have all been built out like crazy, all up in the hills. People got a picture of that, the whole valley floor mm-hmm. covered with buildings. That's what it would have been.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm sorry, but didn't bring my crystal ball, so I'm not sure where it's going. But I think mass transit is something that we should really, if that's what you call it, a high-speed train that goes from Napa to Vallejo and back.
Yeah, I mean, we're supposed to have that one from here to LA, but but this is not a political podcast.
Yeah, that's right. If we were in China, we would have built 10 of those already.
When I went to Japan, interesting enough, when I went to Japan, I became very disgruntled with just America and California in particular, because the transportation out there is flawless.
Oh yeah, well, I've been to Japan. I've been to Hong Kong.
It's
an elegant little box lunch. The sushi.
It was just like, So yeah, I was. But like I say, we're not a political podcast. But even though we deal with issues, we're not trying to. I'm not here to do that part.
We'll step on any toes there.
I don't have enough money yet.
All right.
I get some more money, I'm gonna step on some toes. But so. You have this remarkable journey here in the Valley. You have this remarkable your handprint and artistry is all over the country. What is there anything that you wanted to do that you haven't done, or have you done it already? And if not, what would that be?
You don't mean just locally? You just mean overall?
Just overall, yeah, overall. Whether locally or whether it was somewhere in the country. Did you see a place in your travels say, I want a piece there, just whatever?
Yeah.
Give me locally and
locally, I'm good. If there's opportunities in the future that come my way, I'm happy to do them. I know that to any of the local artists that are watching this, I know that I'm not that popular with some of the local art community because they kind of feel like I'm hogging all the opportunity. What I would say to them is that when you read in the paper that there's a new hotel or there's a new building somewhere being built, a community, whatever it is, that you think that art might be a part of that project, pick up the phone. Call the architects, call the developers, do the hustle. I don't just sit there and wait for projects to come my way. I got to hustle. Nothing's free. You got to do the work to get it. Stanley Ranch, that one came by itself just because I'd already done work with that development group 10 years previous. So there is a thing about when you're established, you start, success begets more success. So that's a true story. Nationally, again, anything that's over a certain dollar amount, I'm interested in doing, and it doesn't matter to me if it's a police station or we just got to inquire for a project for the World Bank, so that's kind of exciting. So I think higher profile projects, bigger projects, beautiful architecture I'd like to be a part of. We haven't talked about the Salt Lake City airport. I touch on that for a second. I would love to do another one of those. And that was a very unusual project in that they used the same artist, yours truly, from the outside, the Gateway project, and I'm woven all the way through the main terminal, down through a 1,000-foot-long tunnel, pop up to Terminal B, the hammerheads. I'm just all over. I'm part of the identity of that whole airport. And that's super unusual. I don't know if that will ever happen again, but I like working on, well, honestly, just massively large. So for a few reasons. One is it creates an undercurrent of financial stability because just the numbers are different. And I like the idea of working on this massive scale. And typically, if you're working on a massive scale, it's in a building that will have mass amount of people going through there. And that means your work is affecting more hearts and minds. And I want that access with my art to humanity. Okay.
Maybe we get the train thing going and you can build an art piece for the train.
Yeah, totally. That's right. Gordon from Vallejo to California, or to Napa.
I always say there should be no reason why from the waterfront marina in Vallejo all the way up to Napa is not just a pathway that's feeding itself with business and merchant.
Yeah, when you were
I don't understand.
Jeremy, when you were talking about how disillusioned or disappointed you were in where California has gone and our country compared to places like Japan. You didn't mention China, but China would be another place like that where everything's zippity-doo-dah clean and fast and shiny and we're just kind of sloshing around in the trash somehow by comparison. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if we've hit our heights and we're on the decline, or do we just need another jolt to get us back on the right path somehow? But we used to build things like crazy, We used to be able to do like that high-speed rail stuff. We knew how to build bridges. We knew, the bridge in the Bay Bridge, that's made in China. Do you know that?
Yeah, I do know that.
Yeah, well, all the bolts came off, but that's well, that's not a slam to China.
Was it the people that put it together, or was it the stuff that came?
The wrong bolts or something? I don't know what happened.
But I do feel this. I was having a conversation in the barbershop the other day, and one of the guys, I was telling them, he's an older gentleman. I'm going to actually have him on the podcast one day. He's a Harvard graduate, but he was a lawyer in Ohio for years, and he moved here to retire. And he's probably 70 or something like of that nature. But I'm saying all that to say this: we always just talk about history. He's a history buff, and I told him, I said, well, America started by breaking away from England, right? And then it had to find itself in the Civil War, right? And then you had the World War II so there's these key pivotal, and when you look at each one of those, I'm not saying that war is the answer. That's not what I'm getting at. What I'm getting at is that there's these massive moments of a country having to face itself.
Yep.
And I think that we're there right now.
We are there right now.
We are there right now, and we're living in the history right now that we used to read about, and and so I think that's where we are today, and somebody is gonna in these times, somebody or a group of people will emerge with an answer, and it's gonna be probably high tension. Like I say, I'm not trying to say that war is the answer by no means, but oftentimes
that's a byproduct of it.
It's a reality of when there needs to be a drastic shift that it just somebody has to do.
Because it's unsustainable the way that it is. It can't.
Exactly.
You can't. Right.
Exactly. And so well, hopefully it doesn't happen while I'm in my thriving years.
Yeah, I only got 10 more years or so. Just hold on a second.
Yeah. So, but anyways, you know what? I just want to we just kind of taper it off there. I want to say thank you so much for coming. I mean, it was such a great conversation. And we see each other all around town. Every time I see you're hugging me, and you hug hard too, man. Lighten up.
Well, that's because I mean it.
My back hard.
Don't be so sensitive.
No, but I love it. Every time I see you, you're full of smiles, and you're a testament to no matter what. The stories that, I hear all the barbershop gossip too, right? So, but no matter what anybody thinks, it's still a testament to putting your head down and just getting the work done.
Yeah.
And that's what you have to do. And not everybody's going to like you along the way, right? And, but if you're, if you're living this life trying to be liked by everyone, then, you might as well get to the other side quick.
Yeah, that's right.
Because it's never going to happen, And so, but thank you for coming.
Right on, Jeremy.
Thank you for blessing the podcast. I mean, we're going to take this to some heights that are unforeseen in the valley, and I'm glad that you were part of it.
Thank you, brother. Thank you.
We'll see you on the next episode. Meet me in Napa.